Have you ever found yourself mapping out every public restroom before an outing? Or perhaps felt a sudden, inexplicable twinge of panic because you couldn't locate one quickly enough? Or maybe it's the subtle, gnawing anxiety that a hearty laugh with friends, a sudden cough, or even a simple sneeze could lead to an embarrassing moment of leakage. If you are a woman over the age of 70 and find yourself nodding along, grappling with urinary leaks or those unpredictable, urgent dashes to the bathroom that seem to materialize from nowhere, please know this. You are far from alone, and more importantly, you are certainly not helpless. It's a common misconception, a whisper that often turns into a deeply ingrained belief, that these bladder issues are merely an inevitable rite of passage into older age, something to be endured in silence, hidden away, or quietly managed with an increasing reliance on pads and a shrinking social calendar. But what if the narrative we've accepted is incomplete? What if the very daily habits we perform, often without a second thought, those small, seemingly insignificant actions, are either fortifying our bladder health or, conversely, quietly, insidiously making the situation worse? This article isn't designed to evoke embarrassment. Its purpose is to foster awareness and, ultimately, empowerment. We are about to embark on a detailed exploration of 8 specific, everyday habits that many women over 70 engage in, often unknowingly, that are contributing to more frequent and frustrating bladder leaks. These habits are frequently subtle, easily overlooked, and sometimes even passed down as perfectly normal ways to navigate one's day. However, the stark truth, as medical professionals increasingly warn, is that these very behaviors might be the silent saboteurs standing directly in the path of genuine relief and regained control. If you've ever felt the sting of discouragement, the frustration of unpredictability, or even a shadow of shame over an accident, you deserve a better understanding and a pathway to improvement. There are tangible changes you can implement, practical adjustments to your daily life that can help you feel more in command, less anxious about leaving your home, and more confident when sharing joyous moments with loved ones. We urge you to stay with us through this comprehensive discussion, as the latter habits we'll uncover might be the very ones you've been practicing the longest, and recognizing them could be the pivotal moment where everything begins to shift for the better. Let's navigate this journey together, step by step, towards greater understanding and control. 1. The perils of holding it in, ignoring nature's call. One of the most pervasive yet underestimated habits that quietly sabotages bladder health is the practice of consistently delaying urination, or holding it in for extended periods. It might seem like a harmless, even productive strategy on the surface. Perhaps you're engrossed in a task, trying to be efficient with your time, attempting to minimize bathroom trips during an outing, or simply waiting for a more convenient or private moment. However, each instance you consciously resist the natural urge to urinate, you are inadvertently sending a problematic message to your bladder, that it must stretch beyond its comfortable, natural capacity. Imagine your bladder as an elastic reservoir. While it's designed to expand and contract, repeatedly forcing it to overstretch day after day can lead to a gradual weakening of the bladder muscles, the detrusor muscle, and a desensitization of the nerve receptors that line the bladder wall. These receptors are crucial. They sense when the bladder is filling and send signals to the brain, letting you know it's time to find a restroom. When these signals are consistently ignored, the communication pathway can become muddled. What begins as a conscious delay can evolve into an ingrained habit, and this habit can subtly recalibrate your bladder's baseline functioning. The consequence? Urgency often strikes with greater intensity and far less warning because the overstretched muscle has lost some of its inherent tone and responsiveness, and the dulled receptors might only sound the alarm when the bladder is excessively full. You may begin to notice that when the urge to urinate finally does break through, it feels overwhelmingly powerful, almost like an emergency. The window of time you have to respond and reach a bathroom comfortably can shrink dramatically. For older adults, this situation is further compounded because the body's general reflexes and mobility might not be as swift as they once were. What might have been a comfortable 5-minute warning in younger years can feel like a mere 30-second scramble. If your bladder muscles have been chronically trained to hold on for hours, only to be emptied in a single, forceful rush, they become less adept at responding with the nuanced control required when you genuinely need them to perform. But the impact isn't solely muscular. The bladder and brain operate within a sophisticated feedback loop. When you persistently ignore the urge to go, your brain essentially learns to tune out these initial, gentler signals. Consequently, when you do want your brain to pay attention and coordinate a timely response, it might not register the need until the bladder is critically full, leading to those dreaded surprise leaks, often at the most inopportune and embarrassing moments. For women over 70, particularly those managing mobility challenges, arthritis, or a general dislike or anxiety about using public restrooms, this habit of holding on is often rooted in well-intentioned, practical considerations. Thoughts like, "I'll just wait until I get home," or "I don't want to be a bother by asking to stop," are common. Yet, in the long run, this practice can create far more significant bother, not only due to accidents, but also because it trains the bladder to behave erratically and unpredictably. Instead of this cycle of delay and crisis, a more bladder-friendly approach involves establishing a rhythm. Try to use the bathroom approximately every 2 to 3 hours, even if you don't feel a particularly strong urge. This practice, often called timed voiding, helps retrain your bladder to empty regularly, prevents overstretching, and keeps those crucial muscles active and responsive without overstraining them. It's a seemingly small adjustment, but over weeks and months, it can significantly reduce both the frequency of urgent episodes and the incidence of leakage. So the next time you feel that initial gentle nudge from your body, honor it. Listen to what your bladder is telling you. It's not an inconvenience, it's a vital biological signal. And when you treat it with promptness and care, your bladder is far more likely to respond in kind, offering you greater reliability and peace of mind. That was our first deep dive into a common habit affecting bladder health. If you recognize the pattern of delaying urination and find this information about honoring your body's signals useful, please let us know by commenting with the number 1 below. Your interaction helps us understand what resonates most with you. Number 2. The nighttime nuisance. Excessive fluid intake before bed. A soothing glass of water, perhaps a warm cup of herbal tea, before settling into bed might seem like a harmless, even comforting, part of a nightly ritual for many. For some, it's a lifelong habit, a simple act to quench thirst or to accompany evening medications. However, for women over 70, the timing and volume of fluid intake, especially in the hours leading up to sleep, can have a profoundly greater impact on both sleep quality and bladder behavior than is often realized. As we age, our physiological processes, including how our bodies manage fluids, undergo natural shifts. The kidneys, for instance, may become more active during the nighttime hours in older individuals, leading to increased urine production while asleep. This phenomenon, known as nocturnal polyuria, can be exacerbated if you consume a substantial amount of liquid, say, a full cup or 2 of water, juice, or tea, within the hour or 2 immediately preceding bedtime. Doing so is almost like pre-programming your bladder to reach its full capacity in the middle of the night. If you're already grappling with issues like urinary leakage or urgency, a bladder that becomes overly full during sleep significantly increases the likelihood of waking you abruptly with a desperate need to go. Or worse, experiencing an involuntary emptying before you can even make it to the bathroom. Many older adults also contend with factors that can make nighttime bathroom trips more precarious. Reduced mobility due to arthritis or other conditions, slower reaction times upon waking, the disorientation of a dark room, the chill of cold floors, or the stiffness that can accompany getting out of bed. All these elements can converge to create a perfect storm for a nighttime accident. This isn't a reflection of a lack of care or effort, but rather a consequence of the body simply being unable to move as quickly or efficiently as it once did when bladder pressure mounts unexpectedly. Furthermore, there's the critical issue of sleep quality. Even if you successfully manage to get up and use the restroom without an accident, repeated awakenings for nighttime bathroom trips, a condition known as nocturia, can severely disrupt your sleep architecture. Fragmented sleep prevents you from cycling through the deeper, restorative stages of sleep, leaving you feeling groggy, fatigued, and irritable the following day. Chronic poor sleep doesn't just affect your mood, it has far-reaching consequences, impairing memory, cognitive function, balance, thereby increasing fall risk, and overall daytime energy levels. Intriguingly, persistent fatigue can even indirectly worsen bladder control, as tiredness can dull sensory awareness and affect the fine-tuned muscle responses required for continence. The solution, thankfully, isn't to drastically curtail your fluid intake and risk dehydration, which brings its own set of health problems. Instead, the key lies in strategically shifting when you hydrate. Make a conscious effort to drink plentifully throughout the morning and afternoon, ensuring you meet your daily fluid needs. Then, begin to gradually taper off your consumption after dinner. If you find yourself feeling thirsty in the evening or at night, opt for a few small sips of water to moisten your mouth rather than drinking a full glass. If you take medications at bedtime that require water, discuss with your doctor or pharmacist whether it might be feasible and safe to shift the timing of these medications to an earlier point in the day. Even this single adjustment, consciously reducing how much you drink in the couple of hours before sleep, can lead to a dramatic reduction in the number of nighttime awakenings and accidents. This, in turn, allows your body a better chance to rest, repair, and potentially regain a greater degree of bladder control, because bladder leaks don't just steal your confidence. They rob you of restful sleep and diminish your overall quality of life. Sometimes, reclaiming peaceful nights begins with something as straightforward as knowing when it's time to stop sipping. We're now 2 habits in. If these insights into nighttime fluid intake and its impact on your bladder and sleep are proving valuable, please comment with the number 2 below. And if you haven't already, we warmly invite you to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell. Your support is invaluable and helps us continue creating content designed to inform, empower, and inspire you on your health journey. Number 3, the caffeine culprit: over-reliance on coffee, tea, and other stimulants. For countless women, that first aromatic cup of coffee in the morning or a comforting mug of tea in the afternoon is far more than just a beverage. It's a cherished ritual, a quiet moment of personal solace, a much-needed energy boost, or a warm social habit shared with friends and family. The familiar aroma and taste can be incredibly soothing. However, what often goes unacknowledged is that caffeine, the very compound that makes these drinks so appealing to many, could be quietly acting as a significant irritant and stimulant to your bladder, making it more sensitive, overactive, and ultimately more difficult to control. Caffeine is widely recognized as a diuretic. This means it signals your kidneys to increase urine production, which is why you often feel the urge to urinate relatively soon after consuming a caffeinated beverage. But its impact on the bladder extends beyond simply increasing urine volume. Caffeine also functions as a direct bladder stimulant or irritant. It can cause the detrusor muscle, the muscular wall of the bladder, to contract more frequently and sometimes more forcefully, even when the bladder isn't particularly full. This can lead to a heightened sense of urgency, increased frequency of urination, and for those already prone to incontinence, a greater likelihood of leaks. For individuals with an overactive bladder, OAB, caffeine can significantly exacerbate symptoms. It's crucial to remember that caffeine isn't exclusively found in coffee and black or green tea. Many popular sodas, especially colas, energy drinks, chocolate-based beverages, and even some over-the-counter pain relievers or cold remedies contain varying amounts of caffeine. Even products labeled decaffeinated are not always entirely caffeine-free. They typically contain small residual amounts that can still affect a particularly sensitive bladder. For a bladder that is already struggling to maintain strong, reliable control, even what might seem like a modest dose of caffeine can be enough to tip the balance unfavorably, leading to more frequent trips to the restroom and a greater risk of accidents. You might have experienced this phenomenon without consciously connecting it to your caffeine consumption. Perhaps you've noticed a sudden, urgent need to rush to the bathroom shortly after your usual breakfast, or found that you can't make it through a routine car ride or shopping trip without an unscheduled bathroom stop. It's easy to attribute these occurrences solely to the aging process, but very often it's the caffeine subtly whispering, or rather shouting, at your bladder, not just your chronological age. For older women, especially those striving to maintain an active social life, stay engaged in their communities, or simply ensure they are well hydrated, this can be a source of considerable frustration and anxiety. The idea of completely eliminating coffee or tea might feel like an insurmountable sacrifice for many. However, significant improvements can often be achieved by simply reducing the quantity consumed, particularly limiting intake in the late morning or afternoon. Even making a conscious switch to herbal teas, like chamomile, peppermint, or fruit-based infusions, which are naturally caffeine-free, or other non-caffeinated alternatives for 2 or 3 days a week can substantially ease the burden on your bladder. Another helpful strategy is to become a keen observer of your own body's response. For some individuals, 1 cup of coffee in the early morning might be perfectly manageable, while a second or third cup, or one consumed later in the day, triggers noticeable issues. Pay close attention to how your bladder behaves on days with higher versus lower caffeine intake. If you find that leaks or urgency tend to be more pronounced on days when you've had more caffeine, it's a strong indicator that adjusting your intake could be beneficial. This isn't about depriving yourself of everything you enjoy. Rather, it's about cultivating mindfulness regarding what helps your body function optimally and what quietly undermines its balance. Sometimes, the simple choice of a caffeine-free beverage instead of your usual can lead to a surprisingly noticeable and welcome improvement in bladder control, comfort, and overall confidence. This exploration of caffeine's impact is our third point. What are your thoughts on the role caffeine might play in bladder sensitivity? Share your opinion by commenting with the keyword caffeine. We value your input and experiences. Bottom 4. The unseen support system, neglecting pelvic floor exercises. One of the most frequently overlooked, yet profoundly impactful contributors to bladder leaks in older women involves a group of muscles that no one sees, but which plays a critical role in urinary continence: the pelvic floor. This intricate network of muscles, ligaments, and connective tissues forms a supportive sling or hammock at the base of your pelvis. It has the vital job of supporting your bladder, uterus, and bowel, and plays a crucial role in controlling the sphincters that open and close the urethra and anus. Just like any other muscle group in your body, the principle of use it or lose it applies with stark reality to the pelvic floor. With advancing age, and particularly after events such as childbirth, which can stretch or damage these muscles, pelvic surgeries, or the hormonal shifts associated with menopause, which can lead to decreased muscle tone and tissue elasticity, the pelvic floor can gradually weaken and lose its supportive strength. This insidious weakening often manifests in small but increasingly frustrating ways. A sudden burst of laughter with a friend unexpectedly turns into a leak. A cough, perhaps from a seasonal cold, catches you by surprise with a small gush. A sneeze, unavoidable and quick, ends in discomfort and the need to change. These are not mere accidents in the truest sense. They are clear signals that the very muscles designed to hold everything securely in place and maintain continence are no longer as robust or responsive as they once were. This specific type of leakage, triggered by physical exertion or pressure, is known as stress urinary incontinence. What is particularly disheartening is that a vast number of women experiencing these issues don't realize that they have the power to actively do something about it. Many resign themselves to the belief that this is simply an unchangeable consequence of having lived past 70, and they begin to rely more and more heavily on absorbent pads, limit their participation in enjoyable physical activities, or even socially withdraw to avoid potential embarrassment. However, medical professionals and pelvic health specialists consistently emphasize that strengthening the pelvic floor through targeted exercises, commonly known as Kegel exercises, can dramatically reduce and in many cases even completely eliminate bladder leaks. The inherent beauty of Kegel exercises lies in their discretion and accessibility. You can perform them virtually anywhere, at any time, without anyone around you needing to know. While sitting in a chair, reading, lying in bed, waiting at a traffic light, or even during a commercial break while watching television. The fundamental movement involves isolating, contracting, squeezing and lifting, and then relaxing the pelvic floor muscles, the same muscles you would use if you were trying to stop the flow of urine midstream or prevent yourself from passing gas. The technique involves holding the contraction for a few seconds, then fully releasing and relaxing for an equal amount of time, and repeating this sequence. Consistent practice throughout the day helps to build strength, endurance, and coordination in these vital supportive muscles. However, as with any form of exercise, consistency is paramount. You wouldn't expect your arm muscles to become significantly stronger by lifting weights only once a month. And similarly, your pelvic floor requires regular, focused effort to show improvement. It's advisable to start small, perhaps with 5 to 10 contractions at a time, performed a few times each day. As the muscles respond and grow stronger, you can gradually increase the duration of the hold, the number of repetitions, and the frequency of your exercise sessions. Many women, even those in their 80s and beyond, have reported experiencing real, tangible improvements in their bladder control after diligently adhering to a Kegel exercise regimen for just a few months. Beyond reducing leaks, a stronger pelvic floor can also contribute to improved core stability, better posture, and enhanced sexual function. If you're uncertain whether you're performing Kegel exercises correctly, a common concern, as it can be tricky to isolate the right muscles without also tensing the abdomen, buttocks, or thighs, or if you're not seeing the desired results, don't hesitate to seek guidance. Many physical therapists specialize in pelvic health and women's health. They can provide expert instruction on proper technique, use biofeedback tools to help you identify and engage the correct muscles, and help tailor a personalized exercise plan that fits your specific needs and lifestyle. What matters most is internalizing this empowering truth. You do not have to passively accept bladder leakage as your unalterable new normal. You possess muscles specifically designed to support you and maintain continence. They simply require a little dedicated attention and consistent effort. When you provide them with that, your confidence in your body is very likely to grow right alongside their renewed strength. Pelvic floor health is so crucial. If you found this explanation of pelvic floor exercises and their importance insightful, or if you're considering incorporating them into your routine, please comment with the number 4 below. We'd love to hear if this resonates. 5. The just a little longer trap, routinely skipping daytime bathroom trips. It might appear innocuous, even efficient, to deliberately extend the time between trips to the bathroom during your busy day. Perhaps you're deeply engrossed in a project, out running errands, and don't want to search for a public restroom, enjoying a movie, or simply trying to avoid being perceived as that person who constantly needs to excuse themselves. However, when this behavior pattern of consciously delaying urination, even when you don't yet feel a strong urge, becomes a regular, ingrained habit, it can subtly train your bladder in ways that are counterproductive and can ultimately backfire, leading to increased bladder problems. The human bladder is a remarkably flexible, muscular organ designed to stretch as it fills with urine and then contract efficiently to empty. But when you routinely go for excessively long hours without urinating, the bladder can become chronically overstretched. Think of it like an old rubber band that has been stretched too far, too often. It can lose some of its elasticity and recoil capability. Over time, this repeated overdistension can reduce the bladder's sensitivity. The specialized stretch receptors in the bladder wall, which are supposed to signal the brain when it's time to void, may become less responsive. This means you might not register the sensation of needing to urinate until your bladder is already very full, perhaps even uncomfortably so. And this is precisely where the trouble often begins. When the urge to urinate finally does break through this dulled sensitivity, it frequently arrives with an unexpected and overwhelming intensity, a sudden, powerful demand that leaves little room for a calm, controlled response. In such situations, the likelihood of experiencing leakage or even a full-blown accident increases significantly. For women over the age of 70, this scenario is particularly risky. As we've discussed, aging muscles, including the sphincter muscles that control urine release, may not react as swiftly or as strongly as they did in younger years. A delayed or dulled signal from an overfilled bladder, combined with a slightly slower physical response time, can mean the difference between making it to the bathroom in time and not. What might have once been a manageable inconvenience, holding on for an extra hour, can transform into a recurring source of significant embarrassment, anxiety, and a feeling of lost control, all because the bladder has been inadvertently trained to wait too long, too often. Beyond the physiological changes, a psychological pattern can also develop. When you repeatedly ignore or override your body's more subtle, natural cues for urination, you may begin to distrust those signals. You might start to question whether you really need to go, telling yourself, "I can wait just a bit longer," or "it's not that urgent yet." This internal negotiation can become a habit, and then one day you find you don't make it in time. Not because you were careless, but because the crucial warning signal didn't arrive with sufficient lead time, or your body, conditioned to ignore earlier cues, didn't have enough warning to react appropriately. The encouraging news is that this detrimental habit can be gently and effectively reversed through a process of bladder retraining. A key strategy involves establishing a regular voiding schedule, such as making a conscious effort to go to the bathroom approximately every 2 to 3 hours throughout the day, regardless of whether you feel a strong urge at that particular moment. This proactive approach helps to keep the volume of urine in the bladder at a more manageable level, reduces the risk of chronic overstretching, and allows you to regain more predictable control over your bladder's timing. It also helps to prevent the sense of panic and urgency that can arise when you're out in public or away from easy access to a restroom. Think of it as meticulously tuning a delicate musical instrument. The more consistent and regular the rhythm of its care, the better its overall performance. Your bladder is no different. Allowing it the opportunity to empty on a regular, sensible schedule helps to maintain its natural function, preserve its sensitivity, and significantly lower the risk of unpredictable and distressing accidents. So if you've been in the habit of pushing through your day, ignoring subtle cues, and thinking that skipping bathroom breaks is saving you time or hassle, take a moment to reconsider. Those small, regular breaks might actually be preserving far more than you realize. Your physical comfort, your emotional confidence, and your invaluable sense of control over your own body. We've covered our fifth habit. If you've ever found yourself caught in the just a little longer trap and realize the importance of a regular bathroom schedule, please comment with the number 5 below. Your feedback is encouraging. And if you're finding this deep dive into bladder health helpful, please consider supporting our channel by hitting the like button, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss out on future insightful content. But verse 6, the hidden pressure, the impact of chronic constipation. It might come as a surprise to many, but the state of your bowels can have a direct and significant influence on the function and comfort of your bladder. For older women, particularly those who experience chronic or frequent constipation, this connection is not merely incidental, it's anatomical and physiological. The rectum, the final section of the large intestine, terminating at the anus, and the bladder are situated in very close proximity to each other within the pelvic cavity. When the bowels are backed up with hard, impacted stool, the enlarged rectum can physically press against the bladder, impinging on its space and compromising its normal function. When your intestines are consistently full and distended due to constipation, they create a persistent internal pressure that the bladder must constantly work against. This added pressure can have several detrimental effects on bladder behavior. Firstly, it can increase urinary urgency, making you feel like you need to urinate more frequently, even if your bladder isn't truly full. Secondly, it can limit how much urine the bladder can comfortably hold before signaling the need to empty, effectively reducing its functional capacity. Thirdly, it can cause the muscles surrounding the bladder and urethra to work overtime or become irritated, potentially leading to spasms or instability. It's akin to trying to inflate a balloon inside an already overpacked suitcase. There's simply not enough room for it to expand properly. The unfortunate results often include sudden, intense urges to urinate, accidental leaks, especially when straining during a difficult bowel movement, and that frustrating sensation of having just emptied your bladder but feeling like you already need to go again. Many older adults quietly live with constipation, often without fully realizing the extent to which it's affecting their bladder health or even other aspects of their well-being. It's common to dismiss it as just another unavoidable part of aging, or perhaps to assume that a reduced appetite naturally leads to fewer bowel movements. However, slow, infrequent, or difficult bowel movements frequently stem from factors that are quite common among individuals over 70, such as chronic dehydration, not drinking enough fluids, insufficient dietary fiber intake, reduced physical activity or mobility, and even the side effects of certain common medications, like some pain relievers, iron supplements, or antidepressants. When constipation is left unaddressed, it can quietly evolve into a persistent daily problem that negatively impacts everything from digestive comfort and nutrient absorption to sleep quality, and, significantly, bladder control. Some women may notice that they are more prone to leaking urine, specifically during a bowel movement, particularly if they have to strain or in the period immediately afterward. Others might experience a vague, persistent discomfort or pressure in the lower abdomen, but find it difficult to pinpoint the exact cause. If any of these scenarios sound familiar, it's highly plausible that your bladder's current struggles are, at least in part, a response to the chronic strain and pressure imposed by constipation, even if you haven't previously connected these two issues. Fortunately, there are many effective strategies to manage and prevent constipation, which in turn can alleviate pressure on the bladder. Prioritizing adequate hydration throughout the day is a fundamental first step. Water helps to soften stool and keep the digestive process moving smoothly. Consciously increasing your intake of dietary fiber through a variety of fruits like prunes, berries, and apples, vegetables, especially leafy greens and broccoli, whole grains, such as oats and brown rice, and legumes is also crucial. Fiber adds bulk to the stool, making it easier to pass. Incorporating gentle, regular movement into your daily routine, such as walking or stretching, can also significantly help your digestive system stay active and regular. Furthermore, if you suspect that medications you are taking might be contributing to constipation as a side effect, it's important to discuss this with your doctor. They may be able to suggest alternative medications, adjust dosages, or recommend safe, gentle remedies, like stool softeners or fiber supplements, to support regularity. When your bowels are moving comfortably and regularly, your bladder has the necessary space and supportive environment it needs to perform its job properly. You might not notice a dramatic change in bladder function overnight, but over time, as constipation resolves, you will likely experience a welcome reduction in urinary urgency, more complete bladder emptying, and fewer unwelcome surprises. Do you have any experiences with how digestive health has affected your bladder, or perhaps tips for maintaining regularity that have worked for you? Don't hesitate to share your story or insights in the comments section. We'd love to hear from our community. This connection is often overlooked. Number 7, the squeeze factor. How tight clothing can compromise bladder comfort. What we choose to wear each day can have a more substantial impact on our physical comfort and bodily functions than we often realize, particularly when it comes to bladder control and pelvic health. Many women over 70 may continue to wear snug-fitting pants, compression garments, perhaps for perceived support or to manage varicose veins, or clothing with tight, restrictive waistbands. This might be out of long-standing habit, a preference for a certain style, a belief that such garments help with posture, or simply because these clothes have been in their wardrobe for years and still technically fit. However, when clothing presses too firmly or consistently around the midsection and lower abdomen, it can quietly and persistently place undue pressure on the bladder, thereby reducing its ability to fill and expand comfortably. To visualize this, imagine your bladder again as that flexible balloon, gradually trying to fill with water, urine. If you were to wrap that balloon tightly in a restrictive fabric and then apply external pressure by squeezing it, it would naturally have far less room to stretch to its intended capacity. This externally applied pressure can create an artificial sense of urinary urgency. You might feel like you need to urinate even when your bladder isn't physiologically full. Over time, this constant, low-grade external pressure can contribute to increased bladder sensitivity, more frequent urges to urinate, a diminished bladder capacity, and consequently, a greater risk of unexpected leaks, especially if other contributing factors like a weakened pelvic floor are also present. Furthermore, consistently wearing tight clothing around the abdomen and pelvis can interfere with the optimal function of your pelvic floor muscles. As we've discussed, these muscles are crucial for supporting your bladder and maintaining continence, and they rely on a degree of flexibility and unimpeded movement to engage and relax effectively. When your clothes constrict the area around your hips, lower belly, and groin, these vital muscles can't contract and release as freely or as efficiently as they should. This means that even if you are diligently performing your pelvic floor Kegel exercises, you might inadvertently be canceling out some of the potential benefits by compressing the very area you're trying to strengthen for a significant portion of your day. You might not even consciously register that your clothing is tight, especially if it's a style you've worn for many years, or if the garments still fasten without an obvious struggle. However, as our bodies naturally change with age, experiencing shifts in weight distribution, subtle changes in posture, or perhaps digestive fluctuations like bloating, even familiar items of clothing can begin to dig in, ride up, or exert pressure in ways they didn't before. Telltale signs that your attire might be too restrictive include noticing red marks or indentations on your skin, especially around the waist or groin at the end of the day. A persistent feeling of bloating or abdominal discomfort that eases when you change into looser clothing, or even difficulty taking a deep, comfortable breath when sitting down. These are all quiet but important clues that your outfit might be doing more harm than good to your bladder and overall comfort. The good news is that you don't need to sacrifice your personal style entirely for the sake of bladder comfort. The key is to seek out clothing options that offer a balance of support and freedom. Look for pants and skirts with soft, elastic waistbands that stretch comfortably without squeezing or binding. High-rise pants that sit at the natural waist, rather than low-rise styles that can press on the lower abdomen, often distribute pressure more evenly. Choosing garments made from flowy, breathable fabrics and favoring more relaxed cuts can also significantly enhance comfort and allow your body to move and function without restriction. If you wear support garments for reasons like posture correction or back pain relief, consider reducing the number of hours you wear them each day, or explore options that provide targeted support to specific areas without compressing the entire abdomen and pelvic region. This is often a relatively small adjustment to make, but for some women, simply switching to a more comfortable pair of pants or choosing to forego a constricting control top undergarment has resulted in an almost immediate and noticeable reduction in bladder discomfort and urgency. It's not about abandoning fashion or what makes you feel good. It's about attentively listening to your body's subtle signals and giving it the physical room it needs to breathe, move, and function at its best. That was point number 7. If you've noticed a difference in comfort based on your clothing choices, or if this gives you a new perspective on your wardrobe, please comment with the number 7 below. Your experiences are valuable to our community. 8. The self-imposed barrier. Assuming it's just aging and not seeking help. Perhaps one of the most pervasive and damaging habits concerning bladder health in older women isn't a physical action at all, but rather a deeply ingrained mindset. The quiet, often resigned assumption that bladder leaks, urinary urgency, or frequent nighttime accidents are simply an inevitable and unchangeable consequence of growing older. This belief, unfortunately, acts as a powerful barrier, preventing countless women from seeking out and receiving real, effective help that could significantly improve their quality of life. It's remarkably easy to fall into this way of thinking. You might observe friends or peers who are dealing with similar issues. You might hear bladder problems mentioned occasionally in conversation, sometimes cloaked in humor to deflect embarrassment, other times whispered with a sense of resignation. Even healthcare providers in busy clinical settings may not proactively inquire about bladder symptoms unless you, the patient, bring them up directly. Because urinary incontinence is indeed common in older populations, it can start to feel normal, like a standard feature of the aging process that one must simply learn to endure. But here is a critical, empowering truth that needs to be shouted from the rooftops. Just because a health issue is common does not mean it is normal, nor does it mean it is an inevitable or untreatable part of aging. And it most certainly does not mean that you have to suffer through it in silence or let it diminish your life. There are, in fact, dozens of identifiable and often treatable underlying causes for bladder leakage and other urinary symptoms. Many of these causes, such as weakened pelvic floor muscles, the side effects of certain medications, dietary triggers like caffeine or acidic foods, hormonal changes related to menopause, urinary tract infections, or even the lingering effects of past surgeries, can be effectively addressed and managed, often with non-invasive or minimally invasive approaches. But these conditions can only be properly diagnosed and treated when someone takes the crucial first step of speaking up and seeking professional medical advice. Far too often, women wait until their bladder issues have significantly impacted their daily lives, disrupting their sleep patterns, curtailing their social activities, complicating travel plans, or eroding their self-confidence, before they even consider mentioning it to a doctor. By that point, they may have already spent months or even years building their entire daily routine around managing leaks, strategically packing absorbent pads in their purse, meticulously planning outings based on restroom availability, or perhaps choosing to stay home altogether to avoid potential embarrassment. This isn't just physically uncomfortable, it's emotionally draining and profoundly limiting, shrinking one's world and diminishing joy. The medical field today possesses a more extensive and nuanced toolkit than ever before to help individuals struggling with urinary incontinence. Options range from specialized pelvic floor physical therapy, which can teach correct Kegel execution and other strengthening techniques, to carefully considered medication adjustments or new prescriptions designed to calm an overactive bladder or improve sphincter control, to behavioral strategies like bladder retraining and timed voiding, dietary modifications, and in some specific cases, outpatient procedures or minor surgical interventions. There are genuinely respectful, effective, and often life-changing ways to significantly reduce or even completely stop incontinence. However, access to these solutions invariably begins with a conversation with a knowledgeable and empathetic healthcare provider. And that vital conversation, in turn, starts with you making the conscious decision that your comfort, your dignity, and your quality of life are worth advocating for. If you've been quietly blaming yourself for your bladder issues, or if you've fallen into the trap of believing it's simply too late to make a meaningful change, I want to gently but firmly remind you, your body is still capable of responding, healing, strengthening, and adapting. But you have to give it the opportunity to do so. That opportunity often begins with shedding the limiting belief that this is just aging, and replacing it with the empowering affirmation, this deserves attention, and I deserve relief. Because it does, and you do. Taking that initial step, whether it's scheduling an appointment with your doctor, committing to trying one new habit discussed here, or even just dedicating time to learn more about bladder health, is not an admission of weakness. On the contrary, it is a profound act of reclaiming your strength, your agency, and your well-being, quietly and entirely on your own terms. This is our 8th and final habit analysis. If the message that bladder issues are not just an inevitable part of aging resonates with you, and if you feel empowered to seek help or make changes, please comment with the number 8 below. And if you've stayed with us this far and found these insights valuable, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. Your support truly helps us continue our mission to create good content that informs, inspires, and empowers our wonderful community. Now that we have journeyed together through these 8 often hidden habits that can significantly influence bladder control, particularly for women over 70, it's a valuable moment for personal reflection. How many of these subtle patterns, these daily routines, might have quietly, almost imperceptibly, slipped into your own life? It's important to remember that these habits typically don't arise from neglect or carelessness, but rather from the rhythms of established routines, the pursuit of comfort as we understand it, or sometimes from that pervasive, unchallenged belief that certain changes are simply an unalterable aspect of aging, and that nothing could really change. The profound truth, however, is that managing bladder control after the age of 70 is not solely a matter of passively accepting what comes. It is, to a very large extent, about cultivating awareness. And with awareness comes the power of choice. You now have a clearer understanding that habitually holding it in for too long can train your bladder in counterproductive ways, potentially leading to urgency and weakened muscle tone. You're more aware that consuming excessive fluids too close to bedtime or indulging in that extra cup of coffee or tea can tip the delicate balance of bladder function. You recognize that neglecting the strength of your pelvic floor muscles or overlooking the impact of chronic constipation can have direct and often unseen consequences on urinary continence. You've even learned that seemingly innocuous choices, like your daily wardrobe or the very mindset you hold about aging and bladder health, play a significant role in your overall comfort and control. Crucially, you also know with greater certainty now that you are not navigating these challenges in isolation. Countless women in their 70s, 80s, and beyond are quietly walking this path, managing symptoms, making daily adjustments, but often also longing for something more, for greater freedom, confidence, and predictability. The most uplifting news is that better is not just a hopeful wish. It is genuinely possible. You do not need to resign yourself to leaks, urgency, or disruptive nighttime accidents as your unchangeable new normal. By taking small, consistent, and informed steps, you can actively work towards regaining confidence in your body, enhancing your daily comfort, and reestablishing a greater sense of control over your bladder. Every single positive change you choose to make, no matter how small it may seem at the outset, sends a powerful and reaffirming message to your body. I am still paying attention. I still care about my well-being. I am an active participant in my health. So, as you reflect on our discussion, which particular habit or piece of information stood out to you the most? Was it an insight into a behavior you've practiced for years, never realizing its potential impact on your bladder? Or perhaps it was the introduction to a new strategy or perspective that you now feel willing and motivated to try, starting today. This journey of improvement isn't about attempting to overhaul everything all at once, which can feel overwhelming. Instead, it's about compassionately meeting yourself where you are right now, choosing one or two manageable changes to begin with, and giving yourself the grace and patience to learn and grow. Because life after 70 isn't the closing chapter of your story. It is still very much your story, vibrant and unfolding. And the more comfort, confidence, and control you experience within your own body, the more fully, joyfully, and actively you get to live it. Thank you for dedicating your time and attention to join us today. We genuinely hope this comprehensive exploration has been illuminating and empowering. We would be thrilled to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave a comment below and share one key insight you learned today, or perhaps one specific action you plan to take in your life based on this information. Your thoughts, experiences, and feedback are incredibly important to us. Reading your comments provides immense motivation and encouragement for our work. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful and valuable, please show your support by giving it a like, subscribing to our channel for more content like this, and perhaps sharing it with others who might benefit. Remember to hit the notification bell too, so you won't miss any of our future releases. Thank you so much for watching, and we eagerly look forward to seeing you in the next video.